Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Hi, I'm Mark Hoffman. You probably have seen me portray many characters on Conversations Across Time, but in real life, I'm a history teacher. I want to introduce tonight's Conversations Across Time. The panel includes Roy Cohn, counsel for Senator Joseph McCarthy during the McCarthy hearings, Fidel Castro, Premier and President of Cuba, Paul Robeson, All-American football player, Hollywood star, and socialist, and myself portraying Karl Marx. Stay tuned for a show that is very provocative. It will show you panic, persecution, and a discussion of freedom.
Welcome to Conversations Across Time. My name is Vivian Crawford. Seated next to me is my co-host, former Pennsylvania State Representative Babette Josephs. Welcome, Babette.
Thank you.
Conversations Across Time is the television show that invites you, the viewer, to suppose possible conversations between important historical figures from differing time periods. The goal of Conversations Across Time is to introduce you, our audience, to the thought processes and strategic applications of immortals who are here this evening to discuss policies and issues which happen to be relevant today. Tonight's guests are, seated to my right, Karl Marx. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Marx. Seated next to Mr. Marx is Roy Cohn. Welcome, Mr. Cohn. Seated next to Mr. Cohn is President Fidel Castro. Welcome, President Castro.
Gracias.
And seated next to President Castro is Paul Robeson. Welcome, Mr. Robeson.
Thank you.
Now, tonight's Conversation Across Time is one that I think a lot of the audience is going to be somewhat surprised by. And I want us to start with Mr. Marx. Mr. Marx, for over 100 years, your treatises on the effects of capitalism have been vilified. As you sit here today, are there any ideas or concerns about the way what you spoke of and what you taught has been proven to be incorrect or correct by subsequent governments?
First of all, Comrade Crawford, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Of course, my ideas have been vilified. In fact, my ideas and my treats would be predictable in the fact that the ruling class, who are the movers and shakers, the capitalist class, if you want to say the 1%, it's okay with me, control the government, control what the people believe, and control what goes on in the country. Therefore,
and they're always going to control the country, Carly. So keep that in mind. It's been going on forever. It's got to continue forever. So get used to it.
Now,
Comrade Cohn, let me finish.
Hey, don't call me comrade. Don't you ever call me comrade, okay?
I want to say one thing, because Mr. Marx, you realize Roy Cohn is someone who history has proven to have been instrumental in conducting the witch hunt, which resulted in even the term McCarthyism. But we'll get to that point. But I want to say that your statement that capitalism separates the economic and political forces, leaving them to have relations through a limiting government. Would you expand upon that? Because I think that's why Mr. Cohn is so upset.
Of course he's upset because he knows eventually the ruling class who controls things will fall, will fail. And what's happening in the United States of America right now is what I predicted. The rich are getting richer. There is less and less middle class. The poor are getting poorer. There's more and more proletariat. And eventually there'll be so many of us that we will rise up and overthrow Comrade Cohn and his ilk.
Excuse me, but that's never going to happen because The American people don't give a damn about what's going on. All they want to do is watch their soap operas, drink their beer, go home, eat their prepackaged meals, and go to bed. That's your American proletariat, Carly.
Now, I want to say this because, I'm going to ask President Castro to jump in here because what Mr. Marx says seems to be happening today, and that is what he stated is that the government exists simply to protect the interests of those who own science, technology, and the means of production.
I think that Comrade Marx was very prophetic in his dictates concerning government, considering the world, and especially in the United States of America, where I would say imperialism reigns wholeheartedly because your Mr. Cohn's edicts parallel what you call paranoia, distraction to the world, so you get what you get.
And Mr. Cohn's hatred of communism is something, and Babette, would you like to speak to that?
Well, it's interesting how much he hated communism. It makes me wonder because he hated what we used to call homosexuals too.
Excuse me, hey, let's not talk about that. I'm calling that off limits.
Oh, no.
I am calling that off limits.
Because we all know that he was, in modern parlance, gay.
Hey, you do not know that. You do not have that information. Nobody has that information. We're not talking about it, okay?
Okay, so let me ask you
The
this.
information I have on you is good as the information you had on other people that you persecuted in the press and through Congress. You were gay. It's not bad about you. It's just a fact.
I'm sorry.
Not talking about it.
No, you don't want to talk about it, but I believe, first of all, let me explain. You were chief counsel for Senator McCarthy. Mm-hmm. You, in fact, led a witch hunt on the intelligentsia. And at that time, I mean, intellect, the word intellect was code for Jew. The interesting thing is, and communist, and the interesting thing is, you're Jewish. That's,
hey,
that's amazing.
I don't get it. I don't make a big deal of my
Religion
background.
or sexuality,
I don't make a big deal of it, and neither should you. Okay, it's off limits.
Comrade Cohn,
Excuse me, I don't like that.
I don't care if you like it or not. Comrade Cohn, let me tell you one thing. You were a closet homosexual. You were ashamed and self-loathing of your Jewish heritage. And I personally think the reason you persecuted people who were just leftists, not even communists, because I think you were a closet communist.
Don't you ever call me a communist. Don't you ever call me a communist again, okay?
Mr. Cohn.
I don't want to use slang expressions.
Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, my
Hey,
friend.
you keep out of it, okay?
My friend.
Now,
Hey, I'm not your friend. I'm your enemy. I'm going to find every one of you goddamn commies and smash them. That's what I did in that committee, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
You have nothing to be afraid of.
Hey, I'm not afraid of you.
It's okay.
We're going to fight you to death, okay?
It's
okay, we're going to give you a moment to calm
okay.
down.
All right,
We're
okay.
going to give you just a moment to collect yourself, unlike the way that you treated some people. We're gonna
Hey,
give you
some
a break.
people need to be treated like that.
Okay.
Those are intellectuals. They're stupid anyway, intellectuals, my ass.
Now, let me ask you, I want to ask Mr. Robeson, because Mr. Robeson, you were singled out and a target because of the fact that you, in fact, respected the treatise of Mr. Marx. You were singled out by the FBI at a time you were accused of engaging in activity to subvert the United States. Now, as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were a lawyer, you were an athlete, you were a performer, you were an actor, you were truly a Renaissance man. But there has never been anything to indicate that you were doing anything to subvert the United States. So I'd like to ask.
He had a political view, that's all, that the people in power didn't like. That's
Exactly what I said. Here was a man that should have been admired, should have been held up as a role model to young African American youth and all youth, but because he believed in my theories, he was vilified and hardly heard of.
So
And some people don't deserve to be heard because guys like Paulie here, they influence people. I mean, people actually act on what they do.
The
And
very fact, Mr. Comrade Cohn, that you call him Paulie shows me the disrespect you have for
For
him.
what? Respect him for what? I mean,
Mr.
all you had to do, Paulie, was just read the script, and otherwise keep your mouth shut and play the game.
Silencio, por favor, por favor. Cierra tu boca, cierra. Oh, Mr. Rhodes.
Mr. Marx, I think that you will find that you have ample opportunity to patronize and demean your neighbor on the panel by simply elongating the final consonant into his name so that it sounds like Roy. However, if you choose not to avail yourself of that opportunity, I will not be upset. One way or the other, the most fundamentally necessary to understand part of my political leanings is that I oppose power and its abuses. So,
But you didn't oppose the abuse of power that was exercised daily by Joseph Stalin against his political enemies by forced labor camps in the Gulag, and the way he really did his best to exterminate the Jews in Russia.
you will find that
And you supported him through all of that.
the support for Joseph Stalin that I made publicly and vocally was, in essence, an act of resistance against the United States government.
You see, like I say, a traitor to his country.
Should have
Those-
found
that-
somebody better.
There is a distinct difference between opposing one's government and opposing one's country. I am certain that you, of all people, can understand the difference. Now,
How so?
Persecute the people.
Hey, some people need, like I said, some people need to be persecuted.
Some people need to be persecuted.
history has shown that you have never at any point in time done anything that did not directly further your own interests.
Exactly.
So, in order to view an act against one's government as an act against one's country is something that you clearly can distinguish. The cause of what was later called McCarthyism was nothing more than an elaborate campaign of persecution that you waged in order to further your own political and commercial interests.
And enhance the electability of the senator for whom he was working.
It's an
and to
extension of
keep-
utilitarianism.
I agree.
It's-
And to keep himself and the senator in power. That's all.
Hey, whatever works. Scaring people in panic has always worked in the past. It always will work. That's how you stay in power and keep power, scaring the hell out of people.
One hopes that the internet will change that.
You gain nothing
If
from
they know how to use it.
you gain nothing from your useless power. Look what happened to you.
Yeah, that's true. Look what happened to you. Fidel is still alive.
And
You
you
talk
died
about-
of AIDS.
you talk-
And you died of HIV/AIDS.
Just old age, huh? That's
At
just old age.
53 or something. That wasn't old
Yes.
age.
I mean, Mr. Cohn, let's be clear. The research is in. You died of HIV/AIDS. No.
Now, people who are not gay died of HIV/AIDS, but that was not you.
You, in fact, hid your sexual orientation. And in today's climate, it's almost laughable. It's almost laughable that you went through such great lengths to hide your sexual orientation. And something else that was particularly interesting about you, everyone talks about how you persecuted communists. You also persecuted homosexuals.
Well, hey, that was the way people thought anymore. That's why they persecute pansies. That's what you do with them. Hey,
That's the highest degree of self-loathing and self-hatred that I've ever heard. And you even
I was one of the most powerful men in Washington.
For a
Why
minute.
should I hate myself?
For a minute.
because you hated the fact that you were a homosexual, which you shouldn't have, and
The fact
you
that you were a
also
Jew, which you
destroyed
shouldn't have had.
yourself, and you destroyed the senator because of your homosexuality.
Well, because you took on the army,
Hey, when
which
you have power,
which
you
Mr.
use it.
Robeson had enough sense not to do. He just kept on talking about politics.
It was not power. It was an
He was
illusion.
talking about
It
politics.
was an
That's
illusion.
all.
It was not power you
No,
had.
it was
Comrade
real.
Cohen, may I ask you one question?
Comrade. Yes, comrade.
We're power.
Why were you and Senator McCarthy and the people who you scared so afraid of my ideas?
Well, you know, these mushhead liberals, they pick up these nice little ideas of save the world, and they pick up your crazy ideas and run with it to get something like Fidel here, and I mean, it's just leave things alone. Let power stay with people who know how to do it, okay?
And you were one of the people that knew how to do it.
Oh yeah, yes, I knew how power works.
Now,
What?
I want to ask you a
What?
question, because your dad,
Yes.
Judge Albert Cohn,
Yeah.
was a well-known and respected jurist. He was a judge in Manhattan, and he was well-known and he was respected. At one point in your life, and he was also a liberal, which of course, particularly
that's something
interesting.
don't talk about.
You don't want to talk about
Another
what?
thing you don't want to talk about.
Hey, well,
What to talk
hey,
about.
that was him. That's not me. That's him.
I have to
Comrade
say,
Cohen,
Excuse me.
you persecuted people for not answering questions. You persecuted people for taking the Fifth Amendment, and
That's not me.
now you sit on the panel and refuse to answer questions.
Because I don't have to. That's why.
and the three other people here had very unusual ideas that
you a
influenced
communist?
the
Are you
world,
a-
but they don't.
Hey, what did you say?
Are you a communist?
Hey, don't you ever call me that.
Listen,
You
may
don't
I ask
deserve-
this, Mr.
What?
Cohn,
What?
are you now,
Oh,
or
I've
have
never
you ever
been
been a member of the Communist Party?
No.
Unfortunate.
Those were the words
he-
which you attacked so
Countless
many
people,
witnesses
countless
so-
people.
that appeared before you. But I want to bring Mr. Robeson in, because my question to Mr. Robeson, as an African American, there's an adage that I can remember my grandparents saying, and that was last hired and first fired. Now, in later years, Mr. Cohn, and of course, he was chief counsel for Senator McCarthy, but the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was greatly influenced by his shenanigans in the U.S. Senate, actually attacked artists. And I want to know, do you think that you symbolically were probably, just because of your heritage, was the first artist to be known, because your passport was taken from you? They precluded you from making a living.
What was the question?
The question was last hired, first fired. Do you have any belief that, in fact, you were attacked much earlier than Mr. Cohn's activities?
Because of
Your
ancestry.
African American, yes.
And because he was so
Well,
talented and articulate.
Was I?
Hey, I'm not going there. You're playing the race card, Polly.
You know,
Wait a second.
As an attorney, I would advise you to take the fifth.
Hey,
Now, at this,
Comrade Cohen, the only reason you were chief counsel was to dispel any semblance of anti-Semitism. Otherwise, Robert Kennedy would have had your job.
my background had nothing to do with
Yes, it
the
did.
way I was hired.
No, your background had everything to
Yes,
do with
it
the way
did.
you were hired, because you actually went behind Robert Kennedy, who would help you to introduce you to Senator McCarthy. Not you had been, J. Edgar had recommended you for the job.
Hoover, that is.
Hoover, I'm sorry. J. Edgar had recommended you for the job with McCarthy. You knew that job was supposed to go to Robert Kennedy. You went to Senator McCarthy and said, "Excuse me, I'm a Jew." And everybody says you're an anti-Semite. If you make Robert Kennedy your chief counsel, then there is nothing, you're both Irish, and there is nothing that's going to stop anyone from thinking you're an anti-Semite. So therefore, you should make me chief counsel. And that's how you became chief counsel. Yes, you would have been working in that office, but you wouldn't have been chief counsel.
Hey, call it what you want.
Call it what you want.
We don't care. We
Who is
don't
we?
care what you
Who's
think.
we?
There's people running the country, and they don't give a goddamn what you wishy-washy, mushbag liberals think. We're going to ignore you, and you just get in our way, we'll smash you.
Wait, the army smashed you. Finally.
The problems of America.
Finally. But we were talking, I think,
So bad.
to Paul Robeson.
You are.
Yes. And you
We
were
were
trying to
rudely
answer a
interrupted.
question. Yes.
We'll always interrupt you, Paulie.
What is Paulie?
This guy here.
Guy?
Yeah.
What is the way you respect people?
Hey, I don't have to respect the communists, okay?
Our beloved companion on this panel has deluded himself into believing that I want a cracker.
Oh, he's
However, I assure you that I do not want you, Mr. Cohn. Now,
Although Mr. Hoover did, and your buddy Roy Shine did, and your buddy
Excuse
McCarthy
me,
did.
but
David
Don't
Shine,
do-
I think.
hey, I said we don't go there. We don't talk about that.
Are you, I say, flirting with him?
Pardon me?
I don't know.
Hey, you don't call me a pansy, boy.
I don't say that. I said, are you flirting?
Hey, I don't like that, okay?
I have been happily married for most of my life. I realize that that might not deter you, but I want you to know that I officially am not interested.
You like him?
Don't try it. You'll get me steamed, okay?
You want me to stand out of the way?
Yeah, if you would, please. I'm tired of you.
So, Mr. Robeson, I was first trying to get from you your sense as to why Comrade Cohn was so frightened of what you represented. Because as an artist,
You're all pansies anyway.
all artists are pansies.
Self-loathing.
Yeah, all those, I mean, you go down Greenwich Village, all those arty types, theater types, they're all light in the loafers. All of them.
Comrade Cohn, you're the most self-loathing, self-hating homosexual I ever came in contact with, and I haven't come in contact with that many, but you are.
Can we get an intelligent answer from someone
Who's intelligent?
Allow him to speak for a moment.
Let talk. I don't give a
Counselor Crawford, I would like to get down to brass tacks.
Please.
Are you suggesting that Roy Cohn's aggression against me specifically was rooted in a fetishizing lust for my African masculinity?
Could be.
Oh, you're really getting into it.
Could
now,
be.
Paulie.
Well,
But we probably think more likely that you were symbolic of groups of people that are easy for lightweight intellectuals like Roy Cohn to stigmatize.
Right.
You're getting,
Your
you
race,
two bros are getting me
You're-
steamed.
your race, particularly your fact that you were articulate, very intelligent, very well educated, all of the things that got Roy Cohn crazy. And we think that maybe he was after you for all of them.
I would like to, at this point, defend Mr. Cohn.
Don't do me no favors.
It is entirely unfair for you to call him a lightweight intellectual. I think he was, at very least, a middleweight intellectual.
All right, I give you that.
Well, I should thank you.
yes, and I do so much appreciate the dry humor in that, Mr. Robeson. Mr. Cohn went after the artist community specifically. And you influenced the House Un-American Activities Committee.
That's how, like I said, that was powerful. And power is exercised. I know how power works. And
So I want to ask a question. I
right,
want our
all right.
audience. I want our audience to get the full breadth of the level of your mendacity, and that is, you and your friend David Shine went around to military bases, looked at the bookshelves that were in libraries, and had a book burning. And one of the books that you and one of the historical personages that you took issue with was Robin Hood. Robin Hood. Now, I just wonder what that was based upon.
Envied the band of merry men, perhaps?
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Well,
No,
somebody's.
No, it's
Yes.
his hatred of my theory, because Robin Hood said, take from the rich and give to the poor.
No, it's actually take from the people who work and give it to the people who don't work. That's the Robin Hood story for you.
Other people think it's
in my
'cause all
theory,
those-
at the time of Robin Hood, the feudal lords controlled everything. They controlled all the wealth, so they didn't work. The serfs worked. So what you're saying, Mr. Cohn, is totally misspoken. I called you Mr. I apologize, Comrade Cohen. And it's totally misspoken. And
It's
they
wrong.
didn't work at all. They didn't work a day in their life. They hunted. They caroused.
They had their
drank their
nails
meat.
done and their
Right,
hair
they're-
fixed.
Right, they didn't work at all. So what you just said is totally incorrect. It makes no sense, and it falls right into my theory. They lived off the surplus value of the labor of the serfs. Now put that in your sleazy pipe and smoke.
And one of the other things that Mr. Robeson just said is that perhaps you had envy of the fact that Robin Hood was popularly characterized as traveling with a band of merry men. Maybe that was what secretly you and McCarthy.
Somebody who, Monty Python or somebody said it's because they wore tights. Maybe that was it. What do you think,
Like I
comrade?
said, I'm not going there.
Well, why did you destroy that book? You still haven't answered the question.
Yes.
What was wrong with it?
It was giving a false impression that the way you change society is to steal from people who work and give it to people who don't work.
Who worked?
Work.
Robin Hood was a mythical, I mean, there are some people that say that truly there was a person by the name of Robin who existed and did, in fact, tend to try to right or balance the imbalance between the wealthy, the have and the have-nots. So I'm concerned as to Robin Hood is something that I submit most of our viewers would think this as a historical character who has brought a lot of happiness and has been made a mythical character over the years, and it's something that's particularly enjoyed, especially by children. Of course, you didn't have any children, so maybe that's why you just felt that Robin Hood was a dangerous book. A dangerous book.
Because it exposed the evils of a class society, a
Yeah.
society where the rich live off the work of the poor.
I think in
And
general-
Robin Hood would have been
Live.
before your committee, and you would have vilified him if you didn't destroy
You
his
would've-
book.
yeah,
You would have
he would've
vilified
lost his
Robin Hood
job.
before your committee. You would have accused him of believing in my theories, and you would have vilified him. And all he said was, "These people don't deserve a cent because they don't work. I'm going to give it to my merry men."
And we're
Hey,
going to
call what you will.
redistribute it.
It was a redistribution of wealth.
Exactly.
Of the people who own the property, the people who own society, own the means of production, like Carly here said, talks
That's
about.
absolutely
belongs-
correct. It's the first thing you said I agree with.
If you want to control a country, destroy education, make sure children do not read, make sure children don't read anything.
President Castro,
Yes.
there are certain reforms that you made in Cuba that are still admired. One of them is the healthcare system.
And which we should emulate
Wha-
here.
What can I say? I think that in spite of the supposed suppression of embargoes and definitions of being communist and socialist and dictatorship, all of that proves nothing. We have a living society that demonstrates what the benefit of the people can be when people work together for a common good without deception.
So we will ask you to come back and when we take up this conversation across time again. Thank you.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations across